Next up, Cat Stevens. Thank you, Matt, again. T for the Tillerman, another album from 1970. I'm going to go ahead and reset the clock right now. We've got 15 minutes, and I should mention that Cat Stevens has for a very long time, since I think the late 1970s, gone by Yusuf Islam as his name. So we're going to use Cat Stevens here because that was the name that he recorded in when this album was there, but we do not want to disrespect his name change later on. So, with that being said, 15 minutes on the clock. Matt, why don't you...
numbers first?
Oh, yeah, go ahead and do the numbers, and then we'll... Yep, sounds good.
So this was number 205 in Rolling Stone's list, and this is the highest-ranked of the Rolling Stone rankings. This is the highest-ranked album that we're covering tonight at 205.
Okay. Gotcha.
And as for Best Ever Albums, 111 in the 1970s.
Another one that missed, so one that was only on the Rolling Stone, not on Best Ever. Okay.
This might be the highest ranked album on Best Ever Albums as well.
Of the albums we covered tonight?
Yeah, I think it is actually. And ranked number 17 in the year 1970 and 484 of all time.
Okay. So. All right. Well, thanks for running that down, numbers guy.
Sure.
Right. And you know what, numbers guy? Why don't you kick us off? Thoughts on T for the Tillerman by Cat Stevens?
So I really liked this album. I liked it more than I thought I was going to going into it. I actually have a funny story. Well, I don't remember too much. My uncle JB, who has that radio show, Good Morning Americana, out of Florida. Mm-hmm. Josh, you can listen to it this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Out of St. Augustine, and so we're coming back from Bonnaroo, and it was like that's a long weekend, and I'm sleeping in the RV as he's driving on the way back home, and he was just playing Cat Stevens for the longest time, and I guess like I kind of woke up, and I was like, can we stop listening to Cat Stevens? I was getting sick of it. So he gives me crap for that. He's like, oh yeah, I was like totally bumming Matt out with all the Cat Stevens, but. I really like this, and it's kind of interesting that we're covering this alongside this at the same time we're covering James Taylor, because they're both kind of they both fall into that category of the singer-songwriter, and we're certainly going to talk about James Taylor in a little bit. But I really did like this album. This was much more. This album rocked more than I thought it was going to. For a singer-songwriter, a lot of the songs kind of start off on the slower side of things, a couple of instruments, just Cat Stevens singing. And oftentimes you would find it kind of building in the last minute or minute and a half or so of the song. There would be, more piano would kick in, drums would kick in, orchestrations, and also his voice would pick up and go, more intense.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, and I like that, and I found myself getting more into it. And so my initial, I don't know a lot of Cat Stevens stuff. Obviously, I knew some of the bigger hits here. You've got Wild World and also Father and Son, which I forgot about. And when that came on, I was like, oh, I really do like that song. That's a very pretty song. But for the most part, I didn't know any of these songs. So I think that was my initial take, was I was pleasantly surprised by how kind of I don't want to say it's not like it's rocking. It's not like heavy guitars or anything like that. But for a singer-songwriter, it kind of is. And so I really did like that. I do like his voice. I think he's got a really good guitar picking style. I think that there's like that he'll do the combination of strumming and then he'll do some picking with notes, and I really do appreciate and like his guitar playing. But there's some sad songs on here, like Sad Lisa is a very it's mostly piano. I think it might be the only song on here that's mostly piano, and it's very it's like a more of a minor key, kind of like a somber type tone. But it's I just like this overall. And then finally talk about referential, T for the Tillerman, that really short song at the very end. I've heard it. I'm like, I know I've heard this song before. Did either of you pick up on where that might have come from? A TV show theme song, perhaps?
Oh. No, I didn't.
I didn't. You never saw the Ricky Gervais show Extras?
No, I didn't.
It was
I have. Oh, yeah, wow, okay.
That's the theme song from Extras, because it's playing, and I'm going, I know that song, right? Because it's the Happy Day, and I looked it up, and I did look that up, and it's from Extras.
Oh, gosh.
So kind of weird.
Forever.
Kind of a weird song. Like it's just what's the point of it? It's like a little over a minute long, and it's not bad, but it's almost like an afterthought. It's a la like Her Majesty from the Beatles. It's like, let's just tack this on at the end, and it's almost like they could have made more of a song out of it, but I guess he decided to stop for whatever reason. So but overall very good. I was very pleasantly surprised, and I might tip my hand. This might have been my favorite album that we're covering tonight. So I'm kind of in alignment with the rankings, I think. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice.
Josh, thoughts?
I like this album also. It's amazing how his voice like carries the emotionality and picks up throughout the course of the songs. And this album is such a fascinating counterpoint to the James Taylor. So I'm glad we got to listen to both of these in the same batch. His lyrics and his songwriting are much more complex than James Taylor's, and he just is able to. I think he's able to change the tone of his voice and bring the not just he's able to bring an intensity into his voice when he needs to, and that highlights kind of where he's going with the song or what he wants you to feel, as well as where the music is going. And I really appreciated that. I know Cat Stevens primarily from like the Harold and Maude soundtrack and Hal Ashby stuff, movies, so I wasn't too familiar with his actual album output, but I know Wild World and Where Did the Children Play and Father and Son. So it was good to kind of take a deeper dive into his music. And I would have liked to listen to this album again. I will say I listened to all these albums for the most part on the drive down. So that was kind of a different experience than what I'm used to when we're doing album stuff. I'm usually listening at home on the headphones. So that was a different experience too, and I got some input from my wife, and she liked this album also. So I was hearing her notes and thoughts as well as we were listening to it, which I don't normally get, which I appreciate.
Did you guys have any big arguments at all, like about this or anything else?
No, we were pretty much in agreement, and she didn't listen to everything that we're talking about tonight, but she heard this, and yeah, I guess those are my initial thoughts. John, what about you?
So I'm going to let you... I try to never do this, but I wanted to hate Cat Stevens because I hate like what I consider to be like beta like level songwriter, like and when I looked at this week, I said, gosh, James Taylor and Cat Stevens the same week, are they trying to and I hate the song Peace Train. Like, it's a top 10 songs I hate, like if I were to make a list in there. With that being said, I actually really like this album, and like I like to think that I can always keep an open mind even when I think I'm not going to. The three things that stood out to me, one was mentioned, the differentiation in Cat Stevens' voice, his ability to go low, and then also very soft and sweet, but also very loud and resonant. He could get high at points. It's when they talk about, your voice as an instrument, I really thought that was, because a lot of the songs are kind of sparse arrangements, so you need someone who can be the instrumentation, and he was able to do this on it. The lyrics to this album were excellent. I'm familiar with the song Wild World, and I always thought, as love songs go, it was very it's always was sort of a very sweet love song, in that sense. So I was familiar with that. I knew Where Did the Children Play, which is kind of like but in the context of this album, it worked a lot better. Father and Son's a pretty resonant song. It actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Cats in the Cradle, a little bit, like by Harry Chapin. It's kind of the same general idea in terms of both how it sounds and also like what the thematic idea is. It's basically a juxtaposing a father and a son. Along the way, it seems like he favors the son's point of view a little bit, which makes me believe that, he might be the son in this argument. I also am not surprised to see how much spirituality plays in these songs, because I know that a lot of Cat Stevens / Yusuf Islam's life has been a search for spirituality. So those were my initial thoughts. It's a very inoffensive 36 plus minutes. It flew by to the point where I said, that was a very breezy, enjoyable listen. So I'll tip my hand. I did not want to like this album, and I left saying, this is a recommend for me, for sure. Yeah. And I think the quality of the songwriting and Cat Stevens' expressive voice is what brought it by. I normally don't like very sparse arrangements, but there's exceptions to every rule, and this is one of them.
Does he play the piano as well as the guitar on this album? Do you happen to know, anyone?
I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did.
Yeah,
it seems like I would guess that he is, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's some good piano playing on this as well.
I mean, I've seen pictures of him playing like the keyboards before, so I'm gonna guess that he probably plays the keyboards on this. Yeah,
And I hear the spirituality part of it too, because the song, I think, what is it, Longer Boats? It's almost like got a spiritual chorus. I don't want to say it's gospel because it's not quite that, but it's kind of hitting along that edge a little bit. You could hear it is more of a spiritual singing.
It's epistolary, is how I would describe it, like tied to some sort of larger spirituality.
Yeah, and I actually think that song would be better if it was longer. I think that some of these songs could have, they had the potential to, I think he could have explored it a little bit more towards the end. But I would also say, I think one of the differences with this and James Taylor too, there's more edge to this. I think that's another thing that I was kind of finding. There's but
it's definitely not edgy. I wouldn't say it's just
no.
edgy in comparison.
But if you're looking at this from a pure singer songwriter standpoint, you're kind of comparing him to other, people in that vein, like a James Taylor or even someone like Jackson Browne, who tends to, he has maybe a little bit more of a fuller band than someone like James Taylor does. But Jackson Browne, I would, this to me, because of the vocal, fluctuations that he's doing, the way that it builds, the way that some of the guitars playing, there is for that type of genre, it's an edgier version of that, I would say. And I would say too that Peace Train is not on here, so you didn't have to worry about that, John. But that also reminded me. Do you remember when Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart did that March for America? They had Cat Stevens came out to play Peace Train, and then Ozzy Osbourne came out to play Crazy Train. And so they were dueling Ozzy versus Cat Stevens. So that was pretty funny. A
personal memory of that Peace Train is that I remember 10,000 Maniacs covered it dead center in one of their albums, an album I really like, but it's just right there, and it's ugh, it's the worst combo of Natalie Merchant's Worst Instincts with a song that I hate it. You know what I mean? It made for the ultimate preachy song. So, can I mention one other thing too? It's nice to hear an album that doesn't seem to be entirely influenced or driven by drug culture. I don't want to sound like a prude, because I'm not at all, but we've heard so many where we've done these bios and it's and then at that point, life took over. I'm not going to say that, Cat Stevens didn't dabble with stuff or maybe even have some different stuff, but this album is very much tied to love and larger values, spirituality, almost even when he talks about love, it's in a more transcendent sense, right, than just the minutia of an individual relationship, right? He's not only just talking about love in his relationship, he's talking about love as a concept, right? He's not just talking about his personal spirituality, he's talking about the world spirituality. So I dug that. Maybe it was the time that I listened to it at as well, when you hear it in the context of stuff, but I definitely appreciated that. So
yeah, I think he's trying to, getting back to what Matt was saying too, I think he's trying to address some larger themes, like both of you were saying, actually. And maybe that's where that edginess, or at least thematically kind of taking it into darker territory at times, or at least not maybe darker, but more serious, or some sort of more adult, I guess, maybe would be a way to put
his whole catalog is basically, if you listen to more of Cats, and I have listened to it enough because I have family members who enjoy Cat Stevens. A lot of his entire catalog is sort of about these larger themes of spirituality, and it's a huge part of his life, searching for that and getting grounded in it. So but I score one for beta rock, which is not normally my genre, but in the
what is
realm
beta
of
rock? I've never heard that term
beta
before.
rock's kind of like down tempo, singer songwriters that there's alphas in rock, right? And then there's kind of betas, right?
You mean
beta
wusses?
rock.
He's a wuss rock? Is that what
I'm not going to say wusses, because the world needs to embrace people feeling deeply and emoting and caring about others. But let's be honest, if rock was just that, right, we'd have a lot off the table. So, there's alpha, beta. This is like that beta singer-songwriter, but not beta bad, just beta,
I'm not conforming to your duality of masculinity, John.
In order to have a duality, though, Josh, you have to have both a light and a dark, right? So that's what this is. So, hey, that's why I'm the least popular member of the pod, because controversial opinions. So
I guess it's not Cat Stevens. Did his Yusuf Islam? Did he do music as well?
Yeah,
He
continued to release. Yeah,
he did. Okay,
yeah.
he just all right.
He still does music.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the whole. I mean, I know the hits and I know this album now, which
He kind of stepped away for a long time though after his conversion to Islam. You know,
I think
what I mean?
he had
To,
some
raise a
issues with
family and-
immigration or something like that,
Yeah.
or the police. I think that
there was that whole fatwa thing with the Salman Rushdie, which was
that it? Yeah.
Yes, he backed up the Ayatollah. Although some people say he didn't, but it's pretty clear in the interview he gave that he kind of did, and it was So it was a whole thing. So yeah, that kind of killed his. It hurt him a little bit in the Western audience, I think, and that was kind of when he kind of became more of a niche figure. I do know a fair amount about that, so yeah.
I just can't help but think of that Curb episode with the fatwa.
Gotcha. I remember after 2001, I think he had some issues like the terrorist watch list and stuff, and he was a pretty outspoken. He kind of redeemed a little bit of his image in the West, I think, as an outspoken person for peaceful Islam. You know what I mean? In there and stuff like that. So, but that's a whole different conversation altogether. I'm not going to kind of get into that. But yeah, I would recommend this album. I would definitely say check it out. I think it deserves its reputation. I'm actually shocked this best ever albums too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
No, I recommend it. I think I'm good.
Long pause. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
We're
right.
deep in thought with Cat Stevens.
That's right. Deep in thought. Yeah. So the 3 recommendations for Cat Stevens' T for the Tillerman, and that's going to